Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Star Trek review, episode number 2. Here we another Star Trek book. We have Star Trek, the original series, A Contest of Principles. This book was released in November 2020. There are 3 different stories in this one. But here's the strange thing, though. They kind of branch off. Like, Spock's story happens as a result of McCoy's story. So, here's basically what Kirk is up to. So, Kirk, along with Commissioner Rare, who is a woman, is basically being a monitor for this planet-wide election for their leader. And, of course, they had suffered through a dictatorship for quite a while, so they basically want a smooth democratic election. There are 2 candidates. One is a former general. One is a general. The other is basically a teacher. Well, basically a college professor. Which, of course, basically everything goes smoothly until they had the first debate, where basically the. By the way, when the Kirk meets the 2 people, he gets along with the professor perfectly fine. Yeah, it actually the professor turns out to be a guy. But then, because of events the story I'll get to, he ends up basically stepping away from election, but doesn't see the election per se. He passed on too. So basically, there's an assassination attempt being made on him, but lucky enough, the person is saved by the commissioner, and she's immediately transported up to the ship. Now, allegedly, the assassin claimed it was a general put up to it. In actuality, it was the candidate's brother who actually did it in order to get the person to drop out of the election. So, in order to drop out of the election, they had to attempt to kill him. Yeah, it was kind of weird. And the whole thing with this is like, okay, and then we have it where the general's accused of being responsible, and of course it's cleared up. Eventually, of course, the student basically ends up taking a spot for her teacher, and she ends up winning the election. Thanks to, of course, there was some last minute stuff that came out. There's some last minute backlash against General Hughes, who was actually very popular with a lot of people. And then, of course, he said some stuff that got him flack, so she lost. And that's the first plot. Second plot is simply put, you have McCoy, Chapel, and a lieutenant flies on this other planet known as Braco, where there's a case of Argentine fever. Turns out there is no patients. They're actually ambushed. And Dr. McCoy is taken. Now, lucky enough, Nurse Chapel herself, she actually is untouched. So she contacted the authorities, and then she contacted Mr. Spock. And form situation, of course, he can't exactly have the Enterprise leave to go deal with this. So, here's something interesting though. Spock puts Scotty in charge. By the way, in the first portion of the story, Uhura, Scotty, Sulu, and Chekhov, do practically nothing until like the latter half of the story. Yeah. So basically they investigate what happened to him, and of course there's this inspector who was very uncooperative with them. So he also wants to take out this particular terrorist front. The way it's written here in this book, by books by Greg Cox, it's similar to Les Mis, where basically just because they're supposed terrorists, they're actually, way to describe this, seem like basically, even though they do some violent stuff, yes, but they according to their people, they say they don't do stuff without a reason. And when they kidnap people, they don't kidnap like Starfleet officers. Usually they kidnap local politicians to do whatever they want. Not Starfleet officers. They're not interested in doing that. Yeah, so that's what the inspector thinks, and it turns out, nope, they had nothing to do with it at all. I like the little adventure when it comes to, of course, they break out, they put in a hotel, and they sneak out. They, of course, meet a reporter who is very helpful for him, though he ends up basically, like, wanting more info, and then of course Spock cuts him off because of the story. So they find out where McCoy is, and McCoy is taken to another planet named Oslar. He's brought there by a count to help a princess. You're thinking, okay, interesting. So they're apparently just treated like a guest, despite the fact that they kidnap him. He, of course, meets the princess, and it turns out there's another healer who apparently has not been healing her very well. At least that she basically is dependent upon like a drug. And, of course, they have a compound in her to help her basically stabilize, but it doesn't work. And he's puzzled about a lot of the story. That is until Spock and Nurse Chapel show up to help him. And thanks to a mind meld, yes, a mind meld, when, of course, they meet everybody. And, of course, the father is met too. I thought this stuff with the father was quite interesting. He pops up, like, roughly, like, 3 times. Of course, there's even one time when McCoy attempted to escape. And it turns out that apparently that McCoy is a threat to the alleged healer. So, thanks, Commander, from Spock, McCoy, and Chapel, the princess is healed, and she's going to assume her place as and because the based on traditions, the king was basically right to name his daughter the heir to the throne. Which, yeah, and of course things are never like this little bow. They also reveal that apparently the 3 planets we see in the story. Apparently, the people who are living these planets are not indigenous systems. Matter of fact, they actually colonized this system some point thousands years before Lentz's book. I'm like, okay, interesting. They explain they come from their portion of the galaxy and they just came here for some reason. I'm not sure why. Though in the case of Oceanar, when the thing is wrapped up, they at least basically have it where there's a possibility of possible positive relation between Federation and Oceanar. And the king is like, yeah, that could possibly work. Now, of course, McCoy's bodyguard at one point looked like she died, and then she's actually alive. How she survived, I'm not sure. Though, of course, McCoy basically did, let's say, witness the efforts of the healer, and it turns out the healer actually put part of her own consciousness into the princess's brain. And thanks to the combined efforts of Spock and, of course, Princess herself, she was expunged and she returned perfectly normal. She, of course, was retired. This was, of course, after they had retired the Count. Like, okay. Now, Spock's father is mentioned a couple times in this book. Does not make physical appearance. They also do, in fact, reference the events of a little bit of Turnaround Intruder in here. Yes, the book is actually set during the final year of the historic mission. This is just another adventure, another series of adventures that happened to happen during that last year. Yes, there was the Year 5 comic book, which of course was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And this book is just basically just filling that gap. I mean, I don't mind a book like this filling that gap. I mean, yeah, the original series basically does do that too. The last book was set during the series. It's technically set after the series. But as it's set before the events, I would place this like during. Basically, it says it's like at the end of the 5-year mission. It takes place in the final year. Okay, so it's in the final year, but basically this is set probably in 2270. So that means it's set 2 years before the events of Star Trek: Next Picture. Yep, really damn good book. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I give this book a 10 out of 10. Really good. Oh, in the case of the other characters, mostly put, it seems like the rest of the cast with basically Uhura, Chekhov, Sulu, and Scotty, mostly put there to help Kirk. They're basically supporting characters in Kirk's venture. While Spock has no adventure, and of course he basically merges his stuff with the stuff going on with, of course, McCoy. And, of course, well, I love the fact that basically, though, you read this book, and it's very similar to the classic style endings you see for the show. Or mostly it just Kirk, Spock, and McCoy on the bridge talking about various different stuff. Yeah, and I did enjoy that aspect of this book. But this book, just like I mentioned, really good. 10 out of 10. Okay, so that's pretty much it for particular review. I don't know if I'm going to get time to review tonight. I'll probably save it for tomorrow at this point. If I have any views planned. So I got streaming to do, okay? So please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and do not hit dislike button. Okay, next view. Bye.